Okay, so next module in our MOU mini series, we're going to cover 32, 33, and 34. Just kind of hit the high points of it to keep the video short and sweet here. But in continuing with the theme of how bad things could be / how bad they actually were, and how much better they've gotten, we'll talk about White Book Article 32. Agency determines shift start and stop times. Agency determines number of employees assigned to a shift. And so now the agency determines up to three core shifts and up to 3 ancillary shifts per core. But then now we have the flexibility to negotiate additional shift start times within that. Section 2 of Article 32 is huge. That section is what forces the agency to collaborate on shift guideline numbers. And so shift guideline numbers are meant to encompass the staffing and workload of each shift. So it's not just how many people do we need to plug in and run the operation, but how many people do we need to be able to provide training team meetings, mandatory briefings, local safety council meetings, MOU negotiations, all that kind of stuff. So that's all kind of encompassed in that shift guideline number. So then within that, there's the amount of employees assigned to each core and ancillary shift within the shift guideline number. And that article also forces the agency to notify the union if they're going to publish a schedule where the amount of employees assigned to the core and ancillary shift differs from the MOU number. And then prior to publishing a schedule that deviates from the actual shift guideline number, they have to meet with the union to talk about, what caused that issue, what concerns arise from it, what we can do to fix it, all that kind of stuff. So that is huge for Article 32. 33 is what talks about, that's the 2-hour time on position article. In the White Book, they talked about the parties recognizing that sometimes 2 hours time, going over 2 hours time on position will happen. But also what needs to be realized is that any time in the White Book where it says the parties agree, the parties recognize, the parties this, the parties that, none of that's true because we didn't agree to the White Book as a contract. So they just imposed that and then put all this language in there saying that we agreed to all this stuff when we didn't. And all it said was that the goal was that people wouldn't work 2 hours time on position. So now the language in Article 33 is much more hardline, where employees shouldn't be required to spend more than 2 hours time on position. It's the supervisor's responsibility to ensure that it doesn't happen. And then if it does become routine, there's an actual negotiated process for that to go outside the building and figure out what can be done about that. Article 34 is the working hours, or like the schedule article. And now the slate book has much more flexibility with the types of schedules that we can work and how they're negotiated. The MaxiFlex 40 schedule allows you to be able to be on a 410 schedule and also work credit if you wish. That was not an option before because all the 410s were considered CWS and you couldn't earn credit on a CWS. So, within Article 34, of course, credit hours were brought back in the slate book. Credit hours were actually in the White Book, but then took a hiatus there for the Red Book. But so, yeah, much more schedule flexibility in Article 34. And so 32, 33, and 34 just continue to show, agency left up to its own devices. They're just going to do whatever they want, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Slate book, much more flexibility for collaboration and negotiation and holding the agency to the line when we negotiate MOUs.